Well, back again, Lo. I know we like to break bread, and we're talking a little bit about Detroit Lions. We're talking about this past year's draft, 2021. Wanted to see, now that you've had an opportunity to kind of think about it. I know I had a chance to sit back, man, and start to think more about what this draft means for the future of the Detroit Lions, especially for this upcoming 2021 season. I wanted to get your feedback, man. What do you see? Anything different?
Well, no, I mean, again, Herm, I like the way they're building the team. I know a lot of people are concerned about them not getting a lot of weapons for Jared Goff to get the ball to on the outside. But, the game is all about blocking, tackling. And to me, you got to start with the guys up front, which they did. And what that's going to do for the Lions, I think, is it's going to enable them to pick up first downs. They're going to keep the ball moving from the offensive side of the standpoint, and they're going to keep opposing offenses on the sideline. To me, that's probably your best defense right now, is to keep guys like Aaron Rodgers and some of these great quarterbacks in the league, to keep them standing on the sideline while your offense is out there on the field eating up the clock by, again, getting first downs and keeping the chains moving. So they seem like they're going to take the physical approach, which is going to be to run DeAndre Swift. They're going to run Kerryon Johnson. They're going to run some of these guys a lot more and put them in situations where they're operating from a third and short, a second and short. And to me, that's ideal. Keep yourself out of long situations and just keep the chains moving. I mean, do you have any concerns about them not getting more wide receivers or getting weapons for Jared Goff to throw to?
Well, I think that's got to be a big concern for this fan base and also for the team, because when you remove such a big part of the offense, you look at just what Galladay and Jones accumulated in terms of just touchdowns alone. That was the production that came out of the passing game, that they were touchdown making machines, especially when they, not only from stretching the field, but also down in the red zone. And they were able to beat the one-on-one coverage. So I'm looking now to say, okay, of the players that they have and of the different receivers that they pick and the ones they're going to have, all right, we know Quintez Cephas, we know Brashard Perriman, and now when you start talking about, okay, if you bring in from USC, their fourth-round pick, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm going to love saying that name. This is going to be a unit that I don't think you can say has the proven record that gives you the confidence to say these are the ones that are going to go out game in, game out, and going to be able to give you a consistency that you can kind of be sure of. I think they can build into that. It's going to come down to how they're developed. It's going to come down to how the system is put together. And as you mentioned, my thought is, when I saw them picking a lot of the linemen, is one, they're going to want to get some people on the defensive side that can stop their opponents. 100%. That's always the case for the defense. Offensively, they're going to be looking at, in the event something doesn't work, we got to be able to have guys, as you say, put their hands in the ground. We got to be able to run the football. We got to be able to get some yardage that normally we may not be able to get because the passing game isn't there and teams aren't really respecting that. So it's going to come down to if they can win on the outside and one-on-one coverages, because I think they will see a lot of man coverage with this type of receiving unit that they have. I think they'll see a little bit more one-on-one. They'll see some zone coverages that have a little bit of a mix of being able to bring pressure to try and force this team to kind of keep it on the ground. So we'll see what happens. But I do like the fact that they're hedging it a little bit by going with some of these linemen versus saying, you know what, we're going to pick early with a lot of the skilled players.
Yeah. And again, Herm, our defense, man, if you think about the defense from the Lions last year, I mean, this last year's defense in 2020 was worse than the 0-16 Lions, and I think in 2008 when they went 0-16. So, to have a historically bad defense doesn't give that coaching staff much confidence of putting them out there and counting on them to stop. Like I say, if you look in our division now with Justin Fields there in Chicago, Aaron Rodgers right now still in Green Bay, and even with we know Kirk Cousins is in Minnesota, but Minnesota did pick up another quarterback probably to compete with Kirk Cousins. You got guys like Dalvin Cook, the running back from Minnesota, who has to be stopped. You got Allen Robinson, the wide receiver for Chicago Bears, who's been a perennial 1,000-yard receiver. I just don't know if we'll be able to stop those guys, especially as young as our secondary is, even though they added some free agents to our secondary. And then especially my biggest concern is the linebacker position. Who's going to cover these tight ends in this league? I mean, it's some great tight ends in this league. And you have to have linebackers that can be able to run with these guys and cover these guys out in space. And I just don't know right now if the Lions are built to be able to do that right now. So I can kind of see some of their concerns and with wanting to have an offense that's going to be a time-consuming offense. You also see that the Lions added 2 big tight ends, Brock Wright from Notre Dame and this Jay Hoosman from Ohio State. Both of these guys are 6'4", 255 pounds. So that lets me know they want these guys to line up next to the offensive tackles and improve that run game. So, I think the Lions are doing things on the offensive side of the ball to try to circumvent what has happened to them on the defensive side of the ball the last few years.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to pick that up. Going out and trying to really solidify the secondary is going to mean getting those players up front. Seeing that they're going with some of the linemen, looking at the fact that they're trying to make a commitment to have linebackers that can cover tight ends, that's going to be another play. You got to have some people that you can move around. The flexibility of their players defensively is going to determine a lot of what they're going to be able to do. I don't think they're going to have enough players, no matter on both sides of the ball, especially in the skill position places, that they're going to be able to leave them exposed. There's going to be a place here where I think the confidence is going to come down on this offensive side is definitely going to be in the running game. I think the confidence in the fact that if they need to pass the football, they're going to have Goff, who is a player that they think can help elevate some of these other players to some degree, but we don't know. There's so many unknowns. It's hard to put a real sense of exactly what's going to happen with this team. One thing I do know is this. I think they're more or less showing that they're making a commitment to want to have a little bit more smash mouth. I know I'm not going to let you start picking on Coach Campbell just yet. I know you want to start talking about his eating habits, and we're not going to do that one. But I think the insights that you give are spot on. I think it's not anything they're trying to, go throw a blanket over our eyes and say, hey, nothing to see here. I do believe that this is a rebuilding type. People hate when you say that and people mention that. But I don't see where they were able to fill enough of the gaps that were there to say we've made enough of a stride in terms of the draft, free agency, or any other transactions that say we've now elevated this team to a point to where it can be more competitive than it was even last year with the players that they had offensively. So it's going to be interesting to see the development and how that goes, but you never know. I mean, this is the NFL, and you never know how teams are going to shake out. They can go from looking like they don't have anything there to all of a sudden going out and being like the Cleveland Browns did last year. So it's going to be interesting to watch them nonetheless, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, one last thing for me, Herm. Well, it seemed like the big receiver is coming back. I mean, if you look at it, even this Jonathan Adams, who the Lions picked up, 6'3", 220. Sage Surratt from Wake Forest, 6'3", 215. I mean, is that a trend? Is it an advantage other than the size advantage? What's the reason why you want to get a big receiver other than the size advantage?
I think what they're looking for is that matchup problem that they've been afforded over the years. You look at Galladay, you look at Calvin Johnson, you look at myself, you start to look at even back in Roy Williams. I mean, you can go back. There always seems to be a trend where you want to have one of those 6'3" or taller type wide receivers that can dominate and create matchup problems, because if nothing else, if they have the athletic ability and they can catch the football and actually run pretty decent routes, it's going to require that at some point you're going to have to put 2 players on them based on the field position. So having that there is a benefit. Brashard Perriman doesn't necessarily give you that size. He's got size, he's got speed, but he doesn't give you the height or that ability to play higher and create matchup problems that become even a headache for 2 players to cover. That's what you're going to be sorely lacking this year when you look at the Lions receiving unit. I don't think you have that player you can actually point to and say they're going to be a nightmare for the defense to have to overcome. Offensively, in the skill positions, I think Swift, and as you mentioned with Kerryon Johnson, those are going to be players that you know what you're getting with them. You know they can make plays. You know they can have production. But they got to fix that other Achilles heel right now, which is you got a new quarterback, you got a whole new trio of receivers that you don't know how that's going to kind of play out potentially on a long-term basis. And then the final part you have is you got new coaches, you got new everything. So it's going to be interesting to see once they start revving it up. Does the car break down, or does all of a sudden it just kick in the gear?
I like that.
So it's a whole new thing. Or are you going to constantly have to take it back to the shop, and get it repaired? But we'll see.
Like that.
We'll see, man. We'll see what happens.
I like that. So they don't need a little oil. They don't need an oil change. You think it needs a overhaul? What you thinking, man? What you think?
Man, you hoping that's all it is. You hoping it's a little windshield wiper fluid. You're hoping that it's a little bit of oil change here. Maybe I got to put a little air in the tire. That I got 4 tires, and 2 of those tires are a little less on air than they need. Got to bring them up. Put the winter pressure in there, or the summer, the hot weather pressure in the tire. But man, if I got to go in there and start taking out the engine, I got to start making all kind of repairs to the transmission. I got timing issues with my timers off, and the car is not acting right. Electronics don't work on the inside. You know how it works.
Yeah.
It could be a nightmare, man. They start putting duct tape on the windows, and you got plastic on the back windshield. If we start seeing that somewhere during the middle of the season, then I'll tell you what, it's not going to get pretty.
See, that's how we do it. That's how we do it in the Motor City. That's how we transition in the Motor City. That's how we do it in Detroit.
All right. But it's a good deal, man. Always a pleasure. We look forward to having more conversations like this. We appreciate everybody for joining into our channel.